Giannis Antetokounmpo's time with the Milwaukee Bucks is officially over, or at least it should be. Giannis is in the prime of his career, averaging 30 and 13 per night. He's been doing that across like 4 straight seasons now, arguably the best player in the NBA, period. However, the team just sucks. It's just straight up not a good roster. I think most people could have looked at this Bucks team preseason and told you it wasn't going anywhere. You remember all the jokes last year with Giannis potentially going on his 2010 LeBron run, 2007 LeBron run, and probably carrying that over with the same roster into this season. But now we're in the mid part of December, right? This Bucks team just got blown out by the Brooklyn Nets, a tanking organization with Michael, the ball stops here, Porter Jr. as their best player, and the team that just drafted 7 point guards in the NBA draft just this past year. That franchise is going nowhere, and for a team that's supposed to be contending for an NBA championship, it turns out they're just in purgatory. So I think it is time for Giannis to finally just make the move. Make the move we all expect and request a trade out of Milwaukee. I mean, how did we even get here with Giannis, right? I mean, there's been trade rumors in the past, but that just seemed more of like speculation potentially. But it seemed like everything after the 2021 championship run with Giannis, with Jrue Holiday, with Chris Middleton, things were looking up, and we could have even potentially been looking at a potential dynasty in the Eastern Conference. But ever since then, things have been downhill. I mean, you can just start with the injuries, right? Chris Middleton in the 2022 playoff run. The Bucks are up 3-2 on the Celtics in the semifinals. Chris Middleton goes down for the rest of the series, and the Bucks end up losing that series with the combination of Jason Tatum dropping 50 points. And you can argue that never happens if Chris Middleton doesn't get hurt. Go to 2023. They play the Miami Heat in the first round. Giannis gets injured within the first 5 minutes of the game. He doesn't come back for games 2 and 3. They split that. And then when Giannis comes back, they still don't win the game. The Heat had all the momentum in that series. They get upset in the first round, and it leads to Mike Budenholzer getting fired. And then in 2024, Giannis goes down with an injury, and he's unable to compete in the series against the Indiana Pacers, which, of course, they were later upset in the first round by Indiana. And then just this past season, right, Damian Lillard tears his Achilles against the Pacers, another devastating injury against the Pacers in the first round. And, of course, we all know the story. The Pacers win that series. They go on to make the NBA Finals. And then just ever since those injuries happened, they just never been able to field a competitive roster around Giannis because it just always seems to fall apart at the worst moments. And then, of course, the big changes around Giannis throughout this 5-year span. Of course, the biggest one being the Jrue Holiday, Damian Lillard trade, right? After they get upset by the Miami Heat, in the first round of the playoffs, they make a seismic move during the offseason once Damian Lillard requested that trade from Portland, and they trade for Damian Lillard, but it cost them Jrue Holiday. The same Jrue Holiday who was the catalyst into bringing them the NBA championship. The same Jrue Holiday who has probably the most iconic final steal in recent memory, right? The steal on Devin Booker, which led to the Giannis alley-oop in Game 5. It's one of the best finals moments we've seen throughout the past 20 years. You replace that with Damian Lillard, who just wasn't a good fit with Giannis, who just wasn't the same playmaker nor defender that Jrue Holiday was, just wasn't the same fit that Jrue Holiday was for the team. And everything just came crashing down. And then just the coaching decisions, right? Mike Budenholzer, right? You fire him after the Miami Heat upset them in the first round in 2023. Like I keep mentioning, that was a big series. But then after that, you bring in Adrian Griffin. He leads you to a 30-11 start. And while that was kind of an up and down 30-11 start, it was still a really good start. But then you fire him mid-season and bring in Doc Rivers, someone who, while he was an NBA champion and had a lot of respect in the league, he hadn't proven anything in the past decade. And ever since they hired him, the Bucks still have not moved forward. And of course, right now, many Bucks fans are calling for his head after just another abysmal start to his Bucks tenure. That's all led up to this. Giannis, of course, we got the report from Shams Charania that he will be meeting with Bucks officials about his future in Milwaukee and will use his injury kind of as like a evaluation period. Now, that's not me being Shams, right? I'm not an insider. I don't have anything. I'm not bagging Kate Adams like Shams is, right? But I think we can put the pieces together that Giannis's time is up. It's just time. It just sucks for a small market like Milwaukee, who hasn't had a gigantic superstar like Giannis since the days of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But you can see the writing on the wall. The team is not going anywhere. They're almost kind of in NBA limbo because they're just on the brink of insanity here. They're just trying to put the pieces together, trying to put a Band-Aid over a torn ACL, but that's not going to fix it. You need major repairs to fix that problem. And for Milwaukee to fix that issue, it's time to get a haul of assets and really rebuild this team into its next era, because right now with Giannis, it's not going anywhere. Shout out to the Bucks general manager, John Horst, for at least attempting to fix the Giannis situation over the years, because he's made some good moves. But one underrated thing about Giannis is he knows how to put pressure on the front office when it's time to make a move. Anytime there's at least just like a thought of a trade request, or maybe Giannis looking elsewhere to a bigger market, the front office gets moving and they make a big move when it's time. Sometimes it's worked, like the Drew Holiday trade after Eric Bledsoe stunk it up and became the sixth man for the Miami Heat in 2020. They make that move and immediately win an NBA championship and have a nice little 3-year contention window, right? And then after that fell apart in 2023, they make the big move for Damian Lillard. And then after Damian Lillard tears his Achilles in the playoffs, and more likely than not, he's never going to be the same for them again, they make the move, stretch his contract, and they get at the time, that was a big free agent acquisition, and Miles Turner. So at least there's been attempts to salvage the situation and really try to make this a contending team around Giannis. But sometimes you try too hard and it just doesn't work out. And he's just exhausted all his options at this point. And it's just going to end up in divorce regardless. So shout out to John Horst again, but it's time for him to make the ultimate move and to move forward to do what I think is best for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, in terms of where Giannis would go, I think there are really limited options in terms of a mid-season trade. It's just too big of a move to make at this point of the year, especially when a lot of the bigger Western Conference teams are playing so well together with their current core that it just wouldn't make any sense to trade them right now. And I think a lot of teams are also going to be hesitant. And remember what the Phoenix Suns gave up for Kevin Durant mid-season back in 2023. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and a bunch of draft picks to the Nets, right? That Suns team was never the same after that trade. So I think a lot of teams like the Spurs or the Rockets are very wary of that. And they're kind of sticking with the young core they have right now to see what they have. And if Giannis is still available in the offseason, then they can go back and reassess what they could potentially give up for Giannis. But of course, there are going to be teams that feel like they're a superstar away. They're one player away right now from winning in the league. And I think those teams reside in the Eastern Conference. One of them being my favorite team, the Miami Heat. It's been a team that's been rumored a long time for Giannis Antetokounmpo. All the way back in 2020, the rumors coming out the bubble was that Giannis to the Heat, Giannis to the Heat. It was a big thing. Obviously, it did not happen. But I think it could happen now with the assets they could give up. You could give up a Tyler Hero in this situation with a Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., maybe even a Nikola Jovic. And you have the contracts of Andrew Wiggins, who's playing pretty well. And you have Terry Rozier, who, even though he might be in prison in a couple months, at least he's a movable contract for a potential trade. So you got to get to moving on that pretty quick if you want to get Giannis. But that's definitely one option that's very intriguing, because the Miami Heat have also shifted their entire offensive philosophy, and I think it fits Giannis perfectly. It's fast-paced, it's score as fast as you can, it's moving the ball at a constant pace, and that fits Giannis to a T. It's no longer the Jimmy Butler dribble handoffs, right? ISOs at the free throw line. It's not a lot of that. It's pace and space. It's driving to the basket. It's paint touches. That fits Giannis perfectly. I also think a team like the Orlando Magic could make a move for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, it's not a big market, right? That's not a place a big market superstar is going to request a trade to just to live there. But you look at the pieces that the Magic have, and you're like, can this team win long-term? Is this a long-term team that we can trust to have a real contention window? It's been up and down, right? The numbers suggest that the Magic are better when Paolo Banchero is not on the floor. And I don't want to call him a ball stopper, but his play style just, it kind of prohibits the Magic from playing with a lot of space. And they have a lot of guys who can play with a lot of pace on the court. Like Jalen Suggs can push the pace. Franz Wagner, I think, is the best player on the team. Desmond Bane is really giving them a lot of spacing. But with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner trying to both figure it out, it's clunky at times. It's very clunky. And I think a potential Giannis and Paolo trade swap could be on the table if the Magic are willing. But of course, that's a long time from now. That could be in a category of we'll assess that in the offseason. But for a team like the Magic, who have a lot of money invested in this current core and it's not doing anything as of yet, I think it's at least on the table. Another team that's been swarming the Giannis rumor mill for years has been the Golden State Warriors, right? Just because it's Golden State, it's one of the markets in the NBA, right? You're trying to maximize the Steph Curry window. You want to get Giannis if he's available to you. What do you give up? Your most valuable asset right now is probably Jonathan Kuminga, right? He's on that restricted tender deal. And then you have other young guys like Moses Moody, potentially. That's a high-level role player, in my opinion. Quentin Post, potentially, as an intriguing player. I don't know the value of Brandon Pajemski because he is not hooping, not even close to hooping right now for the Golden State Warriors. But you could potentially throw in some high-level veterans. Do you already give up on the Jimmy Butler experience in exchange for a Giannis who can usher in the new era after Steph Curry? Do you give away Draymond Green in this case, who is one of your franchise's greatest players? He will have his jersey number retired in Golden State, but do you give him up for a Giannis if he's asked for it? You know, these are things you have to really consider if you even want Giannis. So I think Golden State could be that team. They're a team, to me, that's been moving in desperation to win another championship for as long as Steph Curry can run on the court. But we're going to have to wait and see because it is an older roster and they don't have that much to give. And a team that no one talks about as a destination franchise, but they're a team that's always lurking in these superstar trades, are the Toronto Raptors. They are always in the mix somehow, some way. The Kevin Durant trade rumors, they were in them. The Damian Lillard trade rumors, I believe they were at least the second or third favorites to trade for him when he requested that trade from Portland. And they do have some assets at least. I don't think they give up a Scotty Barnes in this case, but you have some all-star, fringe all-star type of players on your roster that could really help the Bucks at least try to retool the roster, like an RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, potentially a guy like Grady Dick you can throw in as a young asset for that team, Jacoby Walter as well, and of course Brandon Ingram, who has been an established all-star before and could be a guy rerouted in another trade to get you some more assets post Giannis trade. But with Masai Ujiri, right, he's an NBA winning GM. He is one of the best GMs in the sport. He's always going to be lurking for that next superstar. And he loves African players. So that's something to keep in mind too. He loves African players, and we know Giannis is Nigerian. So that's a connection. And then, of course, the biggest name, and I think probably the most likely landing spot, would be the New York Knicks. That has been the team right now. Of course, Brian Windhorst has been reporting that Giannis requested a trade to the New York Knicks this past summer. And if it wasn't so late in the offseason when he requested this move, it could have happened easily. And I think the Knicks probably have the most enticing offer on the table. Obviously, they don't have the same picks they did 2 years ago because they gave up all those assets for Cat, OG, and the rest of the roster. But you look at guys like a Mikal Bridges, a Cat, like I just mentioned, an OG. Those are three names, not all at once, of course, but those are names that are really enticing in a potential trade that you could get back for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Of course, if you're wanting to trade Giannis, you have to get the best package available, and I think the Knicks could offer that. Plus, when you look at the Knicks right now, and you look at a Cat who, of course, you just traded Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo for, but is he going to get you to that next level? Is he going to get you over the hump of the OKC Thunder? That's who they're really competing against, because the Eastern Conference is weaker. You can make it out the East with the roster you have now, but are you going to conquer the beast out West in OKC, or potentially a Victor Wembanyama in the Spurs, or the Rockets, or the Nuggets? With all these elite big men, is Cat really the guy you want going to bat for you? Is he going to be the guy to go band for band with these other superstars in the league who are superstar big men? Giannis could be that guy for you because he is that 30 and 13 guy. He is one of the best players in the NBA. He is an MVP. Is Cat that guy for you? And I think that's a question the Knicks have to ask themselves if Giannis were to request a trade to them, and if they were to blow up the current core that they have really recently constructed as of last year. This is a very recent team that they have put together. Is it worth it at the end of the day? If you're asking me, and if I'm like the Knicks front office, I'm saying yeah, because like Jalen Brunson's great. Patrick Ewing, all-time great. Melo has a Melo Jello, right? Stay Melo. One of the greatest players of my era. I love Melo. There has not been a superstar like Giannis, I think, in the history of the Knicks, right? at least one guy you can consider the best player in the NBA. There has never been a guy like that for the Knicks, ever in the history. And I think that would be the biggest move, not from a basketball standpoint, but also a marketing standpoint. The numbers you could draw in to MSG, to NBC, to ESPN ratings-wise, if you put Giannis on the Knicks, look, man, that's going to feed families in New York for a long time, for a very long time. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, to wrap things up, the Giannis era should come to an end, and I think a trade should happen fairly soon, if not at least by the start of next offseason, because it's just time. It's Dame time to wrap it up at this point. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching my first YouTube video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Where do y'all think Giannis will go? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see y'all next time.